Okay, we're recording.
Okay.
Light,
All right. Well,
camera,
good
action.
afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and pull up the agenda. Are y'all able to see my screen?
No.
Let's see. Okay, are
Yep,
you able to
there
see
we
it
go.
now?
Yep.
Okay, we'll take a few minutes just to reintroduce ourselves with your name, your school, and your position.
My name is Janique Green. I am officially the AIG specialist, but I have a lot of commas behind my roles and responsibilities.
Sharice Bryant, H.J. McDonald Middle School here in New Bern, and I am the MTSS lead interventionist.
Okay, and I'm Shania Lambert. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Magnolia Elementary School in Wilmerton. And we'll just briefly go over the norms. We're respecting each other's time, starting on time and ending on time. We're actively listening with an open mind to conversations. We're just going to contribute and share thoughts and ideas. And we're going to work together to find solutions and to talk about all the work that we've completed on the AAPTEL. And we'll start off by discussing the task one in the AAPTEL. If you want to just share two research items or what you found from your research in task one. And you can just choose two areas.
I'll
Okay.
start. So I'm going to start with recruitment, placement, and mentoring. And so while completing the literature review, I pretty much found that it's very important to make sure that you have a good plan when you're recruiting teachers and placing them as well as mentoring them. Because if you don't have a good plan, then there could it could lead to a high turnover rate. And basically, when you're supporting your teachers and mentoring them, it helps to promote the growth of them as an instructor. Um, According to Ubben and others, they speak on recruitment, and it states that clear position descriptions are very important because it kind of lets the applicant know exactly what they're looking for if they're interested in applying. Smith and Ingersoll also state that leaders retain employees by creating induction programs. And so the induction programs are pretty much the programs that are um, built in the school to help support those teachers to again mentor them and, basically help them feel supported so they're empowered as educators. Um, the other one that I'll speak on is teacher leadership and decision making. And what I found is that it's very important for teachers to feel like they're heard. They feel like they need to have a voice. Ingersoll states that teachers should be given this important role because if they're given the role to be a teacher leader and be a part of the decision making process, then it also promotes empowerment. Whitaker speaks on effective principals, having key teachers that give input for decision making. So if it pretty the research pretty much says if you're an effective principal, then you do ask for the input of your teachers because their input is important.
Okay.
Yes. Um, I'm going to take on building efficacy and empowerment among staff and approaches 2 or 4 evaluation of school staff. um, Building efficacy and empowerment among staff. Of course, we know Bandura is like the grandfather of the concept of, self-efficacy. He did a lot of research in regards to that, but I would like to bring to light an author, Barry, in his 2013 study. He did a study in which he built off of Bandura's efficacy model, and he coined the phrase teacherpreneur. And it really stuck with me because I have a business background and an education background, and I see them both like intertwining in regards to leadership. And with the teacherpreneur, it basically gives teachers self efficacy on a mastery level. Like when you think the owner of a business, how somebody starts a business, how they have to be dedicated to it and wholehearted into it. He basically blends with the Bandura's model and with his own theories that, peer collaboration and being teacherpreneurs or teachers and leaders outside, like past the classroom, like their leadership spills over outside of the classroom, which is very important when you think about you want to make sure that the work that you're doing, impacts not only students, but you're recognized by teacher leadership and, your peers, and that teacherpreneurship kind of put it all into one category. And then approaches for evaluating school staff was very near and dear to me because I remember in my first couple of years of teaching, it was a new evaluation process where they basically just took the end of grade testing scores to basically say if you were an effective teacher or not. And it was very disheartening. And it was like climbing an uphill battle because there was so many other factors and there was so many other things that go into teaching other than student mastery. And Crane, in his 2008 study, did a value added model, which basically means we use quantitative and qualitative data. So it shouldn't be the absence of student data, but student data shouldn't be the only point that we're measuring teacher effectiveness. And Crane was basically advocating for a more balanced approach, and the other things that you add into the evaluation of teachers should be aligned with the school culture, the needs of the students, and also the needs of the staff, not just flat out data.
Okay. And I will talk about the results-oriented professional development. In my research, I found a study by Hammonds, and he stated the 7 areas that make professional development effective. It's just not going in doing it, but making sure it's been done with fidelity. And those 7 areas was active learning, making sure that everybody in the meeting is actually learning something. They're there to learn and not just to be there to say they was there. Collaboration. Professional development shouldn't just be someone speaking at you. It should be working together as a team. It models effective practices, which are the practices that we've researched. Everything should be research-based, not just what you think is going to be effective in the school. It provides coaching and expert support. So the individuals running the professional development just shouldn't be anybody. It should be somebody that has a background and knowledge on whatever the professional development is about. It offers feedback and reflection. It should give the teachers or the individual in the professional development opportunity to speak on what they feel like they need and how they feel like the professional development could be better, and also what they learned from the professional development in a reflection. And it should also occur over a period of time. It just shouldn't be a one-time thing and then you never go back to look at how the professional development was effective, or if it worked, or if it didn't work. And I will also speak on the recruitment, placement, and mentoring of school staff. I really thought this one stood out to me because at our school, we only have mentorship for the beginning teachers. And when I was doing my research, I found research that there should be an emphasis on mentor roles as mentee coaches, not just on new teachers, but also on veteran teachers, because as time changes, sometimes the veterans teachers' instruction should change as time changes. So maybe like with new curriculums, they're not used to that curriculum, or with new standards, they should have just as much training on that as the beginning teacher should.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the mentoring of the more seasoned teachers, because they are often the ones that are left behind in regards to training and everything, and even to check on them, because everyone always feels like, oh, they have it, they've been doing this for so long, they're the expert.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the professional development. They don't really ask them, what do you need in professional development? They kind of go to the beginning teachers and say, well, do you need this or this? And they kind of get left behind or not thought about. I think that really goes hand in hand.
It does.
Yes.
Next, we'll talk about the task 2 in the AAPTEL. So you can talk about your survey data or your walkthrough observation data, and also the gaps that you saw when you're doing those 2 things between the research best practices and what's occurring at your school.
So input on professional development, 57% of the staff said that they feel that they are given the opportunity to give input, and 43% said no. As far as playing a role in school improvement, 77% of the staff said yes, and 23% said no. Plays a role in school-wide policy. 43% said yes, 57% said no. Role in development or managing the budget, 17% said no, 83% said yes. Role in the hiring process, 30% said yes and 70% said no. For the walkthrough data, the biggest gap is that one of the lowest areas for the walkthrough observation was that 60% of the teachers in our building do not give homework. So that was pretty low. And then identify the similarities and differences. There was also 60% that it wasn't identified in the particular lesson that I observed on that day. So the gaps for my school in comparison to research-based best practices, there's a gap on the input on professional development, school-wide decision-making, such as the hiring process, and then as well as like the budgeting. And then after just briefly talking to some of the teachers, some of them say that they feel empowered in the classroom, but do not feel empowered outside of the classroom. And I think it's because they just don't have the opportunity to give input on what is needed in decision-making processes.
Yes, I in my school with the teacher empowerment survey, so there was 26% of the teachers felt like that they did not have input on professional development offerings, while 74% of the teachers did. 29% did not feel like they played a role in the school improvement plan, while 71% did. Teachers play a role in setting school-wide policy. 41% said no, 59% said yes. Teacher has input in the development and or management of the school budget. 88% said no, and 12% said yes. And teachers play a role in the hiring process for new teachers. 41% said no, and 59% said yes. And in regards to the walkthrough data, um, it was found that 80% of the teachers did not have any like manipulatives or like things that they could go hand in hand with in regards to like maybe like artifacts for social studies or science kits or anything like that. And I would like to tie that back to the survey with the budgeting of 88% of the teachers feel like that, they don't have budget, input. And the research does say that when a teacher feels like that they don't have any input on the budget, it does lead to less empowerment in the classroom. So a lot of these manipulatives is probably lacking because in their brain, they're thinking, I have to pay for these out of pocket. And if I don't pay for them out of pocket, then we're not going to have them. And I just found that like, how that all connected. It kind of bore the research. Like sometimes when you do research, you always feel like, well, does that really apply to me and things like that. And in that aspect, it definitely did. Another part of the teacher walkthrough that was a big gap was the higher order questioning. So for my particular instructional walkthrough, I used the walkthrough instrument that we use in the school that's district approved. I did not use the one that was given in AAPTEL. And one of the things that is encouraged district-wide and school-wide is peer collaboration in regards to students working together and higher order questioning. And those are two things that I did not see in the classroom. Like, we're talking about 20% of the teachers that I saw actually was doing it. And so in my gap analysis, I really feel like that there needs to be some targeted professional development in regards to how to input those higher order thinking questions, and how do you um, teach students on working collaboratively effectively. Because I know when I was a classroom teacher, my biggest thing is how do we move this from social to academic? And I just did not have the time or the resources or the knowledge to figure it out at that time.
In my empowerment survey, our strength was the improvement plan. The staff, 89% of the staff felt like they did have input on the improvement plan. Our biggest weaknesses was the budget and the hiring process. 35% of the staff that completed the survey did not feel like they had input on that, and 41% did not feel like they have a input in the hiring process. When I done my walkthrough observations, I completed them with my principal, and we done them in a ESL classroom. And I noticed that there was no homework involved, and I used the walkthrough instruments that the AAPTEL provided. And I discussed with my principal if they were allowed to give homework in ESL, and he said they did, and because the classroom teacher or the core teacher normally gives homework, but we discussed that maybe that homework doesn't go along with what they are teaching in ESL, so maybe it's not being used effectively. So we did note that. And we also noted that although the students were sitting together at like desks, they weren't working together. They were working independently. And we know that was a big thing that was on that checklist. And when discussing gaps, our biggest thing was discussing that the teachers don't feel like they have input on the budget or the hiring process. And in my research, I found that when teachers feel like they don't have input or they're not allowed to voice their opinions or thoughts, they don't have that much empowerment. And that goes back to the classroom again. I also mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, the mentorship. We have co-teachers at our school, but there's no protocol that when they're supposed to meet or if they have to meet or how many times a week they should meet. So we noticed that that was a gap. We also noticed a gap in our professional development. All of the staff are they are required to complete letters. It's a reading professional development, but it occurs during your first 2 years. And after that, the professional development, there's really no professional development other than like meeting once a week to discuss data or meeting to discuss a program. And after that, we don't really have any professional development to share reflections or if it's been effective or not. So we discussed that gap. And we also discussed a gap in how we evaluate our teachers. Most of the time, and just like we did with the walkthrough, we walk through, we've done our notes, and we've done a checklist. But oftentimes, we don't give the teacher feedback after we complete the evaluation, or we don't sit down with them to tell them what their strengths was or what they need to do better. So just getting them more involved in that observation process, and even letting them do peer observations, we discussed that and that being a gap as well. Because in the research, I found that peer observations are effective and they give empowerment to teachers by letting them go in and see what other teachers are doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I
Any
also
other
just
comments?
want to speak on the effects of homework. Um, so in my Master's of Elementary Education, we did do research of the impacts of homework. And there was, so with homework, it was like 50-50, like 50% of the research supported it, 50% of the research didn't. And I know in my district in particular, a lot of schools are moving away from homework because a lot of the children are experiencing homelessness. When we talk about, like, a lot of parents can't assist with homework, and the impact, it doesn't have a big impact on scores if they don't have the proper support at home. So I know that's why a lot of teachers in districts and schools have like shied away from homework. Like my principal in particular is like, he's not saying don't assign homework, but to the grade on homework should be like no more than 5% of the grade. And so
Mhm.
a lot of teachers don't see the value if it's not going to be a reward or consequence, for the completion of homework.
And I discussed that with my principal with ESL homework. A lot of the students in there, they don't speak English at all. So giving them that homework in their core classes isn't really beneficial to them if they can't even understand what they're supposed to be doing. And they don't have
Hmm.
that ESL teacher there to help them during that homework time.
Hmm.
What I noticed is that the 40% that did assign homework, it was two of the math classes, which kind of makes sense because math is one of those things where you need to practice. Um, However, one of the math teachers was taking it for a completion grade, where the other math teacher was actually grading it for accuracy. So, I guess just the difference there.
Hmm.
Okay. Any other comments about task two?
No.
Okay. And in closing, if anybody wants to share any key takeaways from the AAPTEL or maybe discuss how task three is going or your action plans, anything about that?
So for me, test three is going well. Della and I, we actually present to our sit team tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. And we kind of met today to talk about our growth action plans. And so we have some similarities and we have some differences. So yeah, we're moving right along and I'll be presenting to the sit team tomorrow.
I won't be able to present to the sit team until Monday because we are on spring break. And I really, for some reason, I don't do a very good job in like planning ahead. Like I didn't even think about the meet. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing without thinking about, hey, spring break is coming, things like that. But Dr. Revis did give me, just go ahead and complete everything. I'm going to lose points, but I can recover it in the rewrite. So I'm just going to do that. But I do feel confident in my action plan because the meeting that I had with my PLC before spring break was just so good and productive. And, everybody was very interested in the research and the survey results. And it kind of shocked me. They were more interested in than I thought. And little did I know there was a lot of people in the PLC that saw different aspects of it and wanted to improve different aspects of it, but felt like they had to go to it alone. And so with this assignment, it really has brought me and my PLC, together in to really do some change without it being a one person job. So my principal is very appreciative of these studies.
I will also be sharing tomorrow my action plan with my PLC team. And I think that with this action plan, there's a lot in it that can actually happen versus with the AAPTEL work. There was a lot of things the school year is almost done and we couldn't really do it. But with the AAPTEL, I feel like a lot of these things will be able to actually occur and it will be helpful with staff and making everybody feel empowered throughout the school because it really is important.
Mhm. It's sometimes it's easier to implement new things with adults than it is the
Mm-hmm.
students because there's so many different factors that you do have to take into an account.
Mm-hmm. That is true. And I feel like adults adapt to that change a little bit better than
Yes.
the students do. All right. Anything else? All right.
Mm-mm.
Well, thank y'all.
Thank
I
you.
hope you have a great night
You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
and
You
have a good
too.
meeting tomorrow.
Yeah. Good luck, ladies, on your meetings.
Thank you.
Okay.
All righty. Good night.